Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Endurance Insights with myself, Coach Mark Cullen of LP Endurance. Thanks for tuning in. I've been doing these videos for a number of weeks now, and lots of great comments coming on the videos and people messaging me. Seems like some of these are really helping you with your training and racing or just life in general. So, this week we got a lot of fall running races coming up, a lot of half marathons, a lot of marathons, and well, you can't win the race in those final 2 weeks because there's not much more fitness to be built. You sure as heck can mess up your race if you go the wrong direction in a number of ways. So, I want to talk through the final 2 weeks leading into the race to make sure you set yourself up for the best you can on race day. So, let's talk about some key segments here. So, tapering smart. So, I'm going to talk about kind of the final, if you want to say, 14 days leading into the race. So, tapering smart. So, we're going to be cutting the volume by about 30 to 50% of kind of our peak volume. And then we still want to maintain intensity during this time. So our workouts probably aren't going to be quite as beefy, if you want to call it, as when we were in our peak and really trying to push physiological adaptations. But our real purpose with this is to reduce fatigue. So that's why we're cutting the volume and a little bit of the intensity, but we don't want to lose fitness. So that's why we can maintain a lot, if not 95, 99% of that same fitness by doing some of this intensity and still keeping some frequency and volume in there. So about 2 weeks out from the race. So if we're talking a Sunday race, maybe 2 weeks out, a marathoner is probably starting to cut down. They might have done their peak long run 3 or 4 weeks out. About 2 weeks out from the race, you're probably cutting down to about an hour 45 to 2 hour long run. And for most half marathoners, you might be somewhat in that same realm. For most people, it's going to be probably 90 minutes to 2 hours. But it should be a little bit for a half marathon. You could still probably hit one more solid one around that same peak long run. And then the week before, for both a marathon and a half marathon, it's going to cut down pretty quickly. So that long run 2 weeks out, we're probably calling 90 minutes to 2 hours for both sides. And then 1 week out, we're looking more like an hour to 75 minutes for your long run. In both of those, there's going to be some blocks probably at race pace. So, for example, some of my half marathoners, if we're 2 weeks out from the race, I might get them to do something like within that hour 45 long run, they might do a 20-25 minute tempo around half marathon pace and maybe 2 or 3 by 4 or 5 minutes around 10K pace, something a little bit quicker. My marathoners, I might get them to do something like 10K at marathon pace 2 weeks out from the race within their 2 hour long run. So, and then the week before the race, it's going to be a lot more chill. So 60 to 75 minutes. Maybe for my half marathoners, I might get them to do like 2 by 2K at race pace, and a marathoner, I might get them to do 5K at marathon pace. But really, some of these keys in the final couple weeks here on the workout side of things is the analogy I always like to use is you've been growing this vegetable of fitness underground for the whole time. And we don't want to pull that carrot, if you want to call it, out of the ground before the race, especially in those final 2 to 3 weeks, by going to max in a workout or turning what's supposed to be an aerobic run into a marathon or half marathon pace run just because we feel good and we get excited. Don't pull that vegetable out too early. Save that vegetable pull out for race day where it really matters. So don't add bonus workouts and don't go extra hard on easy stuff. Like, you can't gain any fitness in this final 2 weeks, but you sure as heck can go too hard and dig a fatigue hole, or worse, injure yourself and not be able to even get to the start line, or have something that's in the back of your mind that you're doubting come race day. So our glycogen stores also start to restore during these final 2 weeks. You should, in these final 2 weeks, start to feel a little bit restless. That's a sign your body's absorbing the work and you feel like you want to do a little bit more, and save that and bottle it up for race day. So just remember that in the taper part, it's not about building fitness here. We're trying to reduce fatigue and not lose fitness and not injure ourselves. So please save it for race day. Second piece is kind of dialing nutrition in. So making sure we're eating pretty clean, probably cutting out most alcohol in the last 2 weeks if you're somebody there, like the odd glass if it makes you happy or you enjoy being social. Having one glass of wine like doesn't matter, or a beer or something like that if it makes you happy in the grand scheme of things. But trying not to have some benders in there that are going to make you super dehydrated or dig you again a fatigue hole or ruin sleep or force you to miss training in those final weeks. And then from the nutrition side, really in those final 2 to 3 days out, I'm getting most of my athletes to focus. Usually if it's a Sunday race, on the Friday they're probably doing something around 7 to 8 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight. So I'm a 70 kilo athlete, so I might be aiming for something around 500 grams of carbs those days. I'm starting to trim back on the fats and the fibrous foods there. Trimming back a little bit on the vegetables and stuff like that. That's going to sit heavy or give me a little bit more GI distress. And I'm going to start to focus more on carbs. And then the day out from the race, I'm aiming for something more like 8 to 10 grams per kilogram of body weight. So I might be aiming for something more in the 600 to 700 range. And you don't want to do it by filling up with like tons of really heavy food. So it's not like you're eating loads of pasta all day or you're just going to feel super heavy. I like to eat sort of regular size meals that are carb heavy. So the morning might be something like pancakes with banana and a fair amount of maple syrup on it. And that's going to get me tons of carbs there. My lunch might be some sort of sandwich and I'm having it maybe with an orange juice or a sports drink. And then in the evening, I might have something like chicken and rice that I might add in again, some juice or something like that to up the carbs with it. And then between that, I might have things like some candy or some more juice or a baked good in between there, like a muffin that is high in carbs. And it's pretty easy to get those 7 to 10 grams per kilogram of body weight if you keep it simple. But the one big thing is like use things that you've used sort of within your training over the last while in that carb load, so you're not introducing foods that you are not familiar with or that you might be allergic to. And then just with that nutrition side, make sure we're always sipping on water and electrolytes. If you just drink pure water, you can flush all of the electrolytes out of your system, and then that's not great for race day as well. So while we're doing a carb load in there, we're also making sure we're drinking a fair amount of water and electrolytes. I'm just making sure all day I kind of have a water bottle with me. I'm sipping on it, and I usually have something like 250 milligrams in my 500 to 750 ml bottle all day. I just keep adding that. Whether it's like a little bit of table salt in there. I use like the precision tabs and I just drop a little bit in there. But those are some of the key nutrition pieces, especially a couple days out. But some of those like 1 to 2 weeks that are great ones and those final long runs to start to practice your like pre-race breakfast and things like that. Just so you know it sits well with you and how quickly you need to go to the washroom. So pre-race, we usually want to make sure we're waking up 2 to 3 hours before the race to start to get some of these carbs, hydration, sodium, and caffeine in so that it can hit the system and that we have lots of time for 2 to 3 washroom breaks before the race is usually good so that you're not needing to pee really bad or go number 2 real bad. So just keep it predictable and load up in those 1 to 2 days before. Give yourself lots of time the day before the race. Next section to talk about is sleep. So especially the 2 to 3 nights out from the race are really the ones to try and make sure you set up your environment really well. So trying to limit screen time, avoid caffeine after, call it noon. Do some breath work, some mobility or reading, and do that before bed, and try and, especially if we're doing a Sunday race, the Thursday and Friday night, really try and control your environment, get to sleep at a good time, get a really good sleep in those two, because the night before the race, you often won't get a lot of great sleep. It's probably going to be uninterrupted. You might wake up early, and that is totally fine if you've banked some sleep those couple nights before. It's not going to affect your race performance because you're going to be tapered. You're going to nail some caffeine the race morning, and one poor night of sleep is not going to hurt performance as long as the like week leading in was good. So don't stress about the night before. It's not going to be great. You're going to be hyped up for the race and running through scenarios. So just make sure to prioritize sleep, especially the kind of 2 to 4 days out from the race there. Some other things we're obviously doing less training in these final blocks here leading into the race. It's not a time to start to add on new stuff. So new stressors or expanding your social life. It's okay to just sort of go into your cave and start to focus on the race. And nerves are normal. You don't need to spiral by overanalyzing weather or pacing or things like that. Save the mental energy for the race itself. So just not adding any mental stress and trying to keep the work and family stress nice and low if you have the ability to is super important. Some other things like no new stuff. So race week isn't the time to be testing out new shoes or gels or kits. So you should have got those new race shoes a couple weeks out and maybe ran 2 short runs in them to make sure that you know what socks you're going to wear with them, what your kit's like that's not going to chafe and stuff like that. Same with gels. You should have practiced those many times so it's automatic come race day. So remember, just stick with what your gut, your legs, and mind already know. Same with that pre-race dinner, like we talked about. But yeah, I've seen too many people like buy new shoes race week and then they go for their first run in them in race week because they panicked they wanted new shoes and they've never tried them before. And then suddenly they have blisters. They don't know what to use on race day, or they're getting blisters by 2 or 3 miles into their race. And that can be pretty dicey as well. So just nothing new on race day and nothing new ideally on race week is usually the best way to go about things. Don't panic and add things on. Usually it ends up detracting more than actually helping you. Next one is control the controllables in terms of logistics. So laying everything out the night before you travel as well as before the race. So making sure you got all your stuff like pins for your bib, your watch charger, prep your bottles, plan your transportation and parking so that you know everything that can be controlled there and you're getting there nice and early for the race. Way better to be there early than stuck in traffic, panicking and adding extra stress right before the race. So that extra logistical stress is hidden fatigue that you may not be thinking about. So just get there as early as possible, have everything laid out, and give yourself extra time. It goes a long way. But there's some great sort of marathon checklists that you can find online, like on Training Peaks and stuff like that, that will help you sort of go through that checklist in the days and night before and morning of. But remember, we will have race brain and have little forgetful things that you may not be used to, even if you're the most dialed person. I'm one of the most organized people, and still race week, I have little like hiccups or I'm just forgetting things because your mind is elsewhere and you're hyped up for the race. So the more you can sort of take yourself out of the equation and make it predictable by packing things in the days before, then you just get to the race and you know everything is there. Your gels, your watch is charged, your bottles are prepped, your bib is pinned that has your race tracker and everything like that. So just remember, reflect on your training. You've done some awesome work here. Trust the process. Every race is an opportunity to go out there and see what you're made of. It's not proving fitness, you're just expressing it. And there's always another race at this. So I'm always telling my athletes, the hay's in the barn, you've done the work. Race week is staying out of your own way. And if you are getting yourself in a spiral, make sure you have someone in your corner. Many of my athletes will obviously use myself as a coach to help keep them nice and calm in those weeks and give them those reminders that they need to help them succeed on race day. So just dial in all that stuff, the taper, the nutrition, the sleep, the mindset, the gear, the logistics, and have a great race out there. Feel free to send me a message if you have any questions leading up to your race. I'm always happy to help steer people in the right direction. Best of luck in your races, and we'll see you next week for another segment.